Insert witty intro. Yo, what is up? Yeah, Washington is a bunch of assholes. So let's go through this. Let's talk. So I want to walk you through first the history of medical in Washington. I guess it's as big as it gets. All right, fuck it. All right. So this is direct from the Washington State Department of Health website. Just to give you a little history here. Check it out. So Washington first became medical here in 1998. Right? I-692. 1998, we've had medical marijuana. 2007, they redefined the supply. And it got revoked in recent legislation for the recreational laws. So recreational fucks, medical somehow. 2009, the Ogden Memo changed federal government's enforcement policy. This is when every state went nuts because the memo states that they're not going to use DA money to prosecute state legal states who abide by the state law. So I moved to Washington State in 2011. So let's just go back or keep on going down. 2010, increase in who can authorize. This is the most epic one in Washington State that made it awesome. Like, so holistic and caregivers could give you a prescription. Naturopaths, nurses, right here. And this is just basic, man. This makes sense, right? Why couldn't someone who with a medical background or a holistic background say, hey, here's this holistic thing? So, yeah. Now let's go back down. 2011, Seattle law enforcement changed policy. And this is why I moved to Washington State. When prosecutor Pete Holmes said he's not going to prosecute any cannabis cases unless there was other things involved like guns and whatnot, he was not going to prosecute a cannabis case. All right. So the reason why I'm telling you the history here is because when we get into this video, I can only watch the first 5 minutes. And I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to watch it with the crowd because these people give me nauseum. This shit's not, it's a headache. But the thing is, it's important. Knowledge is important for everybody to know what's going on. So here it is. HB1463. If today was heard in the gaming committee, and that's the video we're going to go over. It was just heard. It wasn't going to the floor, but it's got a lot of sponsors here. So these sponsors, it's kind of funny. It's 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans. Which is even more disheartening. We are bipartisan fuck up is what we are. But hey, whatever. So let's just go over this. Let's just see something real quick. I'm going to show you all the people sponsoring the bill. So we got Lauren Davis. She looks like she's never smoked. We got Alex Ramo. Yeah, he probably needs to smoke. Let's see. Amy Wallen. She definitely needs to smoke. Lisa Collin. Now notice, I mean, not to be racist, but like they're all white people. Like any of these, Gary Pollitt, these are all the Democrats. And here we are, the Republicans. Robert Sullivan needs a joint. Brad Clipper could use a dab. Tom Dent could use a dab and a blunt. Peter Arbrano, again, another dab. And the last one, Carolyn Eslick. I mean, it's a very vanilla, very old partisan people against regulating the concentrate. This is what they're going to do. They're trying to regulate the concentrate. And this is why it's so frustrating. Wait till you hear this beginning, and then I'm going to pause it, talk shit, and whatnot. So let's just go through this together.
Representative Davis.
Oh, and be reminded that the process is slow as fuck. So
you have waited. So thank you very much for joining us today.
This is at the very end of today's session.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, State.
Okay, this is State Reefer Davis, one of the ones and the first ones I showed you who's behind the bill, and she's sponsoring it, whatever. So she's talking about it.
Representative Lauren Davis from the 32nd Legislative District, and thank you so much for hearing this bill. In 2012, when Washington voters approved legal cannabis, the black market was dominated by dried cannabis flower with a potency of around.
Okay, one of the things I like to point out is when people talk about black market, they're talking about the medical market, period. Like, we still are going through this bullshit stigma of black market. It's the medical market is what we had. And it was not predominantly flower. It is so hard to be civil. It is hard to be civil. Like, I want to say names and and be like, this dumb B or these stupid but that's not how you propagate a conversation. That's not how you get your point across. That's not how you get heard for other people to hear you. So I will say they're all ignorant. These are all ignorant people who need to come to the table and find out what cannabis really is. So let's just hear more of this bullshit.
Around 10%. Washington.
Wait, let's go back. She gave percentage of flower, which is ridiculous. I think this. Oh, by the way, if you haven't smoked, you probably should smoke because you're going to want to be stoned for dealing with all this bullshit.
For the record, State Representative Lauren Davis from the 32nd Legislative District, and thank you so much for hearing this bill. In 2012, when Washington voters approved legal cannabis, the black market was dominated by dried cannabis flower with a potency of around 10%.
Lies, just lies, lady. First off, this is that same bullshit about like the weed's better now than it was in the 70s. They weren't testing like they do. They weren't refining. It's the same freaking plant. Tomatoes aren't extra tomatoey. We just know better about things in agriculture. It's not better. Oh, it's not. There was no 10%.
Washingtonians took a vote 9 years ago based on that with which they were familiar. Low potency, dried flower.
Okay. Based on that, lady, there was a whole culture. There was two high times, one in Fremont and one in Everett, Seattle high times. During the medical days, dabbing was everywhere during this process. Dabbing existed from the very when I moved here in 2011, there was concentrates available. I didn't know what they were. Mind blown. Hell, they were infusing toothpicks back then in 2011. Like the medical market was way ahead. All this stuff that we're seeing now, people calling themselves entrepreneurs, pioneers. That's the one that kills me. Pioneers. You know, the pioneer was in 2011 getting arrested and raided. Anyways, let's just continue.
Flower cannabis. Dried cannabis flower is biologically limited to about 30% potency, and Initiative 502 capped the potency of edibles at 10%. However, there was no potency limit established for cannabis concentrates.
There's so many lies. There's so many fucking lies. Like there's so many fucking lies. So when medical existed here in Washington, it was like Oklahoma. All you had to do was just say, I have reason. This is why I need a script. This is why I am a medical patient. And then once you had that prescription, you would find the different venues, the different places that would go, and they would only let you in with prescription. The prescription was your access to these areas. Now, that is an unfortunate requirement. Like this was Radical Russ Bellevue is another cannabis advocate and great guy. If you guys don't know him, he's another thorn in Kevin Sabat's butt. But he was all about recreational legalization here in Washington. And as a Washington resident, I was not, because I didn't want to lose what I had. I had lounges. I had $2 dab I could buy at the counter. I could do a $2 dab, buy my flower, and go home. That's what it was like. I could buy clones and other things, seeds. I could have done all that, but I didn't because I'm just a consumer guy who just likes to, and it was cheap and high quality. Boom. Now, anyways, it was high quality for cheap. The market still hasn't reached that yet here in the recreational side. So being a medical patient is still expensive, in my opinion. But let's continue on.
Enter science, industry, and business investors, and today concentrate.
Okay, let's go back a little bit so you can just get that all in a bundle.
Cannabis flower with a potency of around 10%. Washingtonians took a vote 9 years ago based on that with which they were familiar. Low potency, dried flower cannabis. Dried cannabis flower is biologically limited to about 30% potency, and Initiative 502 capped the potency of edibles at 10%. However, there was no potency limit established for cannabis concentrates. Enter science.
There's no limit on any of this stuff, but continue on, lady.
Industry and business investors, and today concentrates with 99% potency are readily available at cannabis retailers. Researchers have described these concentrates as close to the cannabis plant as strawberries are to frosted strawberry Pop-Tarts.
Oh my God. All right. So now she's comparing strawberries to Pop-Tarts, like the frosting bullshit. Okay. I think this is when I stopped watching. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna watch this with people and see if I get through this. Actually, no, I did watch a little bit more because you'll see some more. Anyways, cannabis is 100, or the concentrate is 100% the plant. That's all you're ever gonna get from the plant. It's not like some sort of weird phenomenon that it turns into something else. No, in the shit you're talking about, lady, you're just talking about artificial flavoring. That's what you're talking about. So what's going on?
Meanwhile, concentrate sales have soared. I've spent my career working in the field of mental health and substance use disorder treatment and recovery.
Oh yeah, pay attention. I forgot. She's a mental health person, and that's why this connection to like craziness. And this is why I went over the history with you guys. This is why I had to talk about the history, because we had it since 98. I've been here since 2011, and there was already lounges and stuff already here. I didn't, where was the cry for the rise of psychosis at that time? Nothing. Not, you know what happened? They took it over because they wanted all fucking goddamn tax money. But let's go on, man. I'm sorry.
A few years ago, I began to hear reports of youth with cannabis-induced psychosis filling emergency departments and psychiatric wards, and high school students having psychotic episodes after dabbing. I started to delve.
I hate these heavy words. Psychotic episodes. Like, okay, dabbing. Yes, it took me a while before I even got an effect on one. But when I did have one, I had to sit down for a little bit. But you know what? I lived 10 minutes later. That's what happened. I had a friend that threw up. But sometimes it's like a shock to your system, right? You're like, whoa, I don't do all that all at one time. But that's what an overdose is for cannabis. It's either you're going to have a little bit of vomit or you're going to chill the Pink Floyd all freaking night. I mean, really. So let's talk about the crazy lady talking about her crazy job.
Delve into the research. The literature is both definitive and damning.
It's not.
The consequences of high potency cannabis can be separated into 3 buckets.
Go, girl.
First, there are physical health consequences. While low potency cannabis can soothe nausea and promote appetite, high potency cannabis can have the opposite effect. Chronic use of
Okay, somebody needs to let her know about cannabinoids, terpenes, because it's not just one goddamn thing, people, right? I mean, if ignorant people are going to go, high concentrates are going to make you not. Are you freaking kidding me, dude? Dude, I fucking play video games, eat the shit out of a pizza after a dab. But anyways, let's go.
high potency cannabis products can cause severe bouts of vomiting, known as cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome.
Okay, hyperemesis, say it like meses, is not because of concentrates. Now that's still even up to debate, right? We some people think it has to do with neem oil. Bringing some dumb shit that's not has no basis of foundation of facts.
Or CHS. Second, there are addiction-related consequences. The higher the
Yeah, you're addicted to the fucking truth, lady. That's what you're addicted to. You're so pissed off and so mad at all the bullshit fucking lies and misinformation. You're addicted to trying to stand up for yourself.
potency, the greater the likelihood that a person will develop cannabis use disorder. And finally, there are mental health consequences. High potency cannabis increases the risk of developing a psychotic disorder like schizophrenia, even when accounting for family history.
This is false. So the other end of this conversation is if you're predispositioned to having a situation, maybe cannabis could exacerbate, but again, nothing has been proven. And if you're already in a predisposed way, it's not cannabis' fault, and you're an adult. You should be able to say, okay, this helps or doesn't help. Recognize what helps, goddammit.
Washington's top cannabis researchers spent 6 months poring over the best available science on the subject of high-potency cannabis.
Name names, lady.
This past December, they released a consensus statement summarizing the landscape of peer-reviewed studies.
No.
Their consensus, in no uncertain terms, is that high-potency cannabis increases the risk for serious health consequences, including cannabis use disorder and psychosis, especially in young people. I recently received an email from a young woman in our state named Nicole. She started noticing significant changes in her 34-year-old sister who was using dabs. Her sister's life spiraled out of control since
maybe Nicole's sister's just a lazy bee. You know what I'm saying? What, Nicole, your sister is just doesn't give fucks, period. She never did.
October, there have been repeated arrests for assault, hit and run while driving under the influence of cannabis. One evening late last year, after dabbing all day, Nicole's sister began experiencing hallucinations and hearing voices. She was found wandering the neighborhood barefoot, knocking on neighbors' doors, looking for her children. She was taken to the hospital by...
Sounds like meth to me.
Police and admitted into inpatient psychiatric treatment. This is but one of many tragedies playing out across our state every day since these extremely high potency products became legal and widely available. Last legislative
Since
session, I
98?
introduced a bill to
Since 2012? When, lady? Give me a goddamn timeline.
cap the potency of cannabis concentrates at 10%. I initiated numerous meetings with the cannabis industry, and none of them were aware of the psychosis link. Though they disagreed with a potency cap as the solution, industry leaders were emphatic in their commitment to coming to the table as thoughtful partners to address this issue.
See, these are the people that want to blame the kids or whatever, but what about the parenting? What about the person? This is just bullshit.
So you can imagine my surprise when, instead of proposing more palatable policy solutions as promised, cannabis industry representatives testified before this committee last fall that the volumes of research implicating cannabis in psychotic disorders is unfounded. Borrowing from the
It is, lady, because based off of timelines, you would have been mad about this 8 years earlier. Period. You would have seen some other thing, but this is not. We have to put blame where blame's due, and that's on the people who are fucking up. It's not the weed's fault.
The well-worn playbooks of their forefathers, big tobacco and opioid manufacturers, cannabis business leaders attempted to poke holes in the science and offer alternative explanations. In 1957, the tobacco industry wrote, "No one has established that cigarette smoke or any of its known constituents is cancer-causing
big tobacco is blocking.
And in 2020,
big marijuana is blocking.
Cannabis industry leaders testified to this committee that cannabis use is not independently associated with psychosis. I never anticipated the industry would enthusiastically agree to a low potency limit. I only expected them to make good on their word, to show up as earnest partners in addressing their product's role in one of the largest emerging health crises of our time.
Wrong.
After all, this is an industry that preaches about its commitment to public safety and public health. I hope and pray that today industry representatives will use their time and testimony to propose solution-oriented approaches to tackling the dangers of their products, rather than another round of rejecting the consensus of our state's leading cannabis researchers.
The cap's not the issue, lady. About being a better parent, be a better person.
Washington's cannabis industry cannot choose to believe science only up until the point at which it interferes with their profits. It took nearly 2 decades before policymakers took action regarding the scourge of opioids in our community, despite early information about the addictive nature of OxyContin and rising overdose deaths. Today, it's a new substance, but the story is the same. The physical and behavioral health of an entire generation of young people is at stake. Inaction is not an option. We cannot change the past, but it's our responsibility to learn from it. History was repeating itself right before our eyes, and we have been entrusted with the power to change it. I hope you will join me in supporting House Bill 1463. Thank you.
Fuck that bill.
All right, thank you very much. We will have Vice Chair Wicks call up our first panel.
So this one's a...
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to start with Dr. Carlini and Dr. Haggerty, and then follow that with Avanti Berquist and Beth Abel.
So again, you're all going to be like therapists and drug counselors.
Just as a note, while they are transitioning, just to try to keep everybody on task and in time, Vice Chair Wicks will go ahead and hold up a card for 30 seconds when you have 30.
Okay, let's just try to forward that. Sorry, guys.
The committee. My name is Beatriz Carlini, and I'm coming to this hearing as a private citizen. Professionally, I work at ADAI at the University of Washington, where I chair the Cannabis Research Education Work Group. Psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia affects less than 1% of Americans.
It's just a slanted researcher.
These disorders have no cure, are profoundly disabling, and cause an enormous amount of suffering to those afflicted by it, their families, and communities. There's no single cause for psychotic disorders. They are caused by interplay of genetics with life events. Research has overwhelmingly documented that one of these life events
how does this help you?
Cannabis, particularly those with high THC content.
I just don't get how
high potency cannabis increase the risk of developing psychotic disorders.
And not just psychotic disorders. You would see this trend in every legal state. Hell, you would see this trend in Oklahoma.
We cannot legislate genetics, but we can regulate the environment we all live in. Eliminating or radically decreasing access
I feel you,
to
Mike.
high-potency cannabis can
That's
protect
why
youth from
it took me
developing
a while to
psychosis
get
when
to
they're
here.
minor.
I feel
This
you,
is a
Mike.
moral obligation backed by science.
Oh, hey, it is.
Even more
Fuck
so
you degrees
because
here,
CDC
Mike.
data shows that in the state of Washington,
So fucking cold.
dabbing cannabis concentrate
You too, Vicky.
is more prevalent
Thoughts and
among
prayers, everybody.
historically marginalized groups, such as ethnic and racial.
Oh, this is the shit that pisses me off. Oh, here comes the fucking headache again, right? Like every time they hit a point that certain things like is cannabis is stronger now, or when you start talking about the minority communities, right? We already know this is a disenfranchised issue for legality. Now you're telling me we're suppressed. No, this is not a thing. Proper treatment, proper health, right? Like addiction, it's not incarceration is not the treatment. It's a treatment. It's a treatment. God damn.
Minorities, low income,
They don't.
uninsured, and those reporting poor mental health. Thanks for your time.
We'll just throw out some bullshit
Thank
facts
you,
and we'll call them
Dr.
truth.
Haggerty.
Good morning, Chair
Alan here and
Close, members
Kelly.
of the committee.
Nice.
I'm Dr. Kevin Haggerty, a professor at the University of Washington School of Social Work. I also direct the Social Development Research Group, a world-renowned substance misuse prevention research center. I want to be clear about what I'm not talking about today.
Terpenes? You're not talking
Today,
about
I'm not
terpenes?
talking about the legal use of dried cannabis plant.
Again,
I understand
oh,
from my industry
that's
colleagues
right.
that it's unlikely that
Again, when the tumor hits in the back of the head, when you get that little vein popping up, I'm not talking about flour. I'm not talking about the kind you can smoke in a bowl. I'm talking about the shit when you squeeze it out, like orange juice, and then you smoke that. No way, man.
the plant flower would yield more than 30% THC potency. So what are we talking about?
Bullshit numbers.
High potency manufactured cannabis concentrates.
Oh, by the way, if anybody has 30% flour out there, please let me know. Drop in the comments, and I'll DM you. I want that flour.
These are manufactured products such as oils, butters, and products for dabbing. They contain THC levels varying from 60 to 99%.
They're coming for our butter.
Manufactured products now represent 35% of the Washington cannabis market, up from 9% in 2014.
It's like being schooled by a
But is it
ghost.
safe? I've sent you a summary of the committee consensus report from researchers at UW and WSU who worked together to address this question. We found 3 specific associated risks with high potency cannabis. First, young people are particularly vulnerable and at higher risk
Well,
of developing
that's why we got
cannabis
laws.
use
They don't
disorders
have
or
access
addiction.
to it.
Second, younger adults, low income, ethnic minorities, and those reporting poor mental health were more likely to use high potency cannabis products.
I resemble our remark.
Third, daily use of high potency cannabis can have lifelong mental health consequences, particularly related to psychotic disorders. The consensus, the greater the potency of cannabis products, the greater the likelihood of adverse effects. Thank you.
These are your facts.
Thank you.
Again, I hope you're high. Like I'm
about
gonna be
hope.
high as fuck after this.
Can we take questions, Madam
Oh,
Chair?
Damn, we just passed
Yes,
420.
let's have a quick question from Rep. Morgan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just had a question for either of the doctors that as we're looking at high potency in
I love this
cannabis,
lady.
are you also looking at high potency in alcohol, especially in alcohols like Black Velvet, Everclear that also bring on psychosis?
Get him, girl.
It's a great question, Representative Morgan, and the report that we were looking at specifically was focused on cannabis. So it's something we may need to take a look at as
So
well.
we're not looking to solve issues. We're just looking to slander one fucking thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go ahead with
What up, Big
Dr.
Dog?
Bergquist. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Madam Chair, members of the committee. It's my pleasure to testify on behalf of the Washington State Psychiatric Association in support of House Bill 1463.
Ooh, more mental
For the
health
record,
against
my
it.
name is Dr. Avanti Bergquist. I am a physician with specialty training in psychiatry and in adult psychiatry and child and adolescent psychiatry. As you've heard, We have very high potency cannabis products in our Washington state market. And I'm really concerned about.
Okay, here's what gets me real to it. I hate getting told about for the children by people who don't have kids, especially people who haven't had kids that are grown up or older. I've raised a couple, and I'd like to say they're not all retarded, and they do cannabis.
About the reports from the cannabis industry that they think that high potency cannabis does not contribute to development of psychotic disorders. I've also read that consensus statement from our top cannabis experts at University of Washington and Washington State University, where they summarize the volumes of research on this topic. And I just want to point out a quote from there, that high potency cannabis use can have lifelong mental health consequences, which often manifest in adolescence or early adulthood. Daily cannabis use, particularly of high potency.
You know, they forget that you got to be 21 and over to buy weed in Washington State. 21 and over, folks. So if the kid's getting weed for their psychosis, maybe we should yell at the fucking adult getting it.
Products increases the risk of developing a psychiatric disorder, a psychotic disorder like schizophrenia.
This makes me fucking
Is
nuts.
related to
This
an
shit.
earlier onset of symptoms.
This is
compared to
why
people who do not
we're
use
nuts,
cannabis.
guys.
So I don't know if you have ever met anybody who has schizophrenia. It is a lifelong deteriorating disease for which there's no cure.
Like the government?
And people can experience, just one of the symptoms, people can experience voices telling them terrible things, berating them constantly. And I've treated
Like the government.
children on the psychiatric unit who have used cannabis, were previously healthy, and then developed psychosis. Would you really? I don't think we want in our state
Where'd they
our
get the
young
weed?
people
Probably doing more than weed, lady.
experiencing these voices if they don't have to, all the other symptoms. Thank you.
God damn it. She needs a J.
Yes, thank you very much. I see a
I
question
agree,
from
Richard.
Representative Chambers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This question could go for any of the doctors that are testifying today. I was just wondering if there are any tests out available that somebody could understand their genetic markers or predisposition to schizophrenia or.
Vicky, you bring up a great point. I mean, it's medicine. And if you ever know anybody that's sick, they need high doses, high concentrates. Cannabis is medicine, whether it's a flower or whether it's a concentrate form. It's a goddamn medicine. All right, let's go back. Oh, did I hit it right?
The like.
There we go.
There's nothing at this point that is clearly a genetic marker, definitely for schizophrenia. There's still a lot of research going on about
Yeah,
it.
and there should be a lot of research for
Tested.
cannabis causing goddamn. Anyways,
Okay, thank you. Representative Morgan, quick question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm on the same note as Representative Chambers is on. You are testifying to us today that high potency, I'm not clear, can lead to schizophrenia, or is a schizophrenic client using potency exasperate? So I need some clear clarification.
right? What did she say? Who said that? Nah, that was a bad schizo joke.
On this, because what it sounded like you said was that high potency cannabis causes schizophrenia.
And I see that
Somebody
Dr.
doesn't know how to use the
Carlini
internet. She raised her
has a
fucking
response
hand.
to that.
Push a
Go
little
ahead,
button.
please, Dr. Carlini.
Yeah, I just want to go back a little bit in terms of the marker, genetic marker, if it's possible to have a test. Even in the day that it's possible to have a test, in terms of policy, it's not realistic to saying you just can enter a store to buy cannabis if you have a genetic test beforehand. So this is—
That's not the point,
more
lady.
like a medical procedure. In terms of policy, it has to be a blank statement. In terms of causing or not, as I mentioned before, is multi-causal. While we cannot control the genetic part, we can control what will trigger this genetic part. There are many things, but in our power is
Yeah, we could also do things like 21 and over and not let fucking kids
All
buy
right,
it, I
thank
guess.
you
You know, I
very
mean,
much. And
fucking people, man.
Dr. Berquist, quickly.
Yes. So, like Dr. Carlini said, it's not going to be the one cause, likely. Everybody has a threshold over which you're going
And
to
it's probably not
develop a
going to just be the one
psychiatric
dab
disorder.
or one type of
And
concentrate.
we don't know where that threshold
and you
is.
don't know what it is.
Everybody has different ones.
Everyone has a different one.
It is
It's called the endocannabinoid
that
system.
high potency cannabis tends to throw people over that threshold more so than other
When you use word like
environmental
tens,
factors.
you can't be
So,
scientific, man.
You know, we know that young people with cannabis-induced psychosis are more like, or half of young people with cannabis-induced psychosis will receive a diagnosis of schizophrenia in the next 8 years.
Exactly,
So
Nicholas.
it is much more correlated than
Bet you all this psychosis
many
shit
other environmental
involves
factors.
more than just weed, people.
Okay, thank you for explaining that correlation. Okay, we have another person on this
They will.
panel,
Kids
I
will get.
believe.
But they're also
Yes.
doing other shit too,
Sorry,
right?
we'll start with Beth Abel, and then we'll move on to Lucas Hunter, Ramsey Dodar, and Caitlin Ryan.
Thank you, they're on deck. Okay, great, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair Kloba, esteemed members of the Committee on Commerce and Gaming. I'm Dr. Beth Ebel. I'm a pediatrician and also the co-chair of the Washington chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics,
So another doctor.
representing 1,200 pediatric providers
okay.
in every one of your
It
legislators.
just occurred to me. Blah, 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 blah. It just occurred to me, like all these doctors with the kids, blah, blah. Again, 21 and over is the rule in Washington State. So what is limiting the concentrate percentage? What good? What is that going to help? Because you're all about what the kids, but the kids should be buying it anyways.
Districts. I hope that you've been hearing from us because this is a high priority for our chapter. We completely support the comments of our esteemed colleagues who have shared this information with you. This bill is supporting reasonable guardrails around these high potency products. And the health consequences are significant. And so it really is incumbent on us to make these policy measures and put them in place to avoid putting people at unreasonable risk. And I can go over, the data, and you've heard some of that, but let me just tell you some stories of what I see. I work at the trauma center at Harborview, and it's a pediatric trauma center. So we see a lot of serious problems. And the first thing is that almost a third of the kids 12 and up that I take care of on the trauma center have marijuana involved in their injury.
So did anybody ask them? Did anybody find out for the parents? I mean, how did the marijuana fall down and hit him? Did marijuana like just jump at him and slap him? What's going on, lady?
This is a huge and growing problem.
Sounds scary to
and
me.
while this bill isn't the only solution to that, we have to address it. Second, I've taken care of kids admitted for concerns of traumatic brain injury because they are so altered. And it turns out that this is psychosis or just completely out of their minds, high on these concentrated products.
What, like
And
all the time?
lastly, I'll tell you a story about
Dude,
a
you
young
do a
man
dab, you're
who
done
I
in
took
like an
care of
hour.
until he died. He had taken a concentrated product, and to the dismay and horror of his friends, he became so altered and consumed with guilt that he leapt from a third-story balcony. Unfortunately, he died.
Okay, this story I know what she's talking about. It happened in Colorado, not Washington. And I think he was really high, and some other pills I think were involved, and he was high as a kite, but not on just concentrates. And again, one allegory out of what, 20 years? How many alcohol stories do we have?
This is a significant problem. And I hope that you all will consider both the stories of these individuals and the data of scientists and the support of our pediatricians in supporting this important bill, House Bill 1463.
It's already 21 and over, you bad word.
Okay, thank you very much. Vice Chair Wicks.
Yes, we are, next is Lucas Hunter, followed by Ramsey Dodar and Caitlin Ryan.
And can I also put on deck Vicky Christopherson? That way we'll have 4
I feel you,
pro
Chad.
and content.
It seems that the
Yes.
pros for this bill spoke up more, and this is why we're going to have to step up more. Homegrown, though, on the other hand, is making great headway.
Hi, good morning, representatives. My name is Lucas Hunter. I'm representing Harmony Farms. While I do understand the intent of public health, safety, and youth prevention provided in House Bill 1463, I don't see this bill as a means of addressing a core issue of youth access and further seeing it cause health issues from the utilization of filling agents and concentrates. My concern with youth access lies with forming an illicit market for high-potency products after becoming inaccessible after the passage of this bill. For a brief background of sale of minor compliance checks by the Liquor and Cannabis Enforcement, cannabis retail stores have a sale minor rate of 5.8%. Comparing this to alcohol sale of minor checks in 2019, we had a rate of 20.5 non-spirit.
I'm glad he's bringing up the whole "what about the kids" bullshit. Like, he's like, you know, put yourself in check.
Sales to minor. Youth access is not coming from our retail stores. Youth access is coming from outside the regulated market. I believe we can combat this, though, with education and outreach. Yet I have not seen any educational campaigns that have utilized cannabis excise tax for its funding. Before addressing youth access with introducing a new prohibition, something that we've been working to get away from for the past 6 years, we must put time, energy, and a portion of the collected tax dollars into education and prevention. Beyond my concerns of the lack of education and outreach, I have concern about how we would safely limit THC concentrates to 30%. Consumers were plagued with illicit cannabis vape cartridges in 2019 containing vitamin E acetate as a filler. This resulted in widespread illness. This illness was not problematic before the era of illicit vape cartridges and is not an issue now that those cartridges are out of circulation.
Damn right.
Within the regulated market, purity is paramount. Our THC concentration is parallel to purity in concentrates. When consumers see lower potency products, it's questioned, what am I consuming that isn't?
I had to pause for a second. Hey, Jared, in Kentucky, somebody just put some bills in the house for you guys. So good luck to you guys. Just want to throw it out there.
Cannabis. With this proposed language, our industry would have to find a means to add cutting agents, filling agents, stabilizers, and so on. Really, all the ads our industry does not use. This is easily verified by the concentrate ingredient disclosure form, or the vapor disclosure form, submitted by our industry and retained by the Liquor and Cannabis Board. After a quick public records request and reviewing the submitted vapor disclosures, you can see that Washington cannabis doesn't contain filling agents beyond flavoring. And further, the flavoring that is often derived from the plant itself is derived from the plant itself. We as an industry do not utilize filling agents to make up 60% of our concentrates with non-THC containing substance, as we are not aware of the long-term health effects of those substances may have.
Okay, Mr. Lucas,
it's all plant, baby.
I am sorry to interrupt you. We are at the end of your time allotment, and I want to make sure that other folks get their opportunity to speak too. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Anything you left off can be done in written commentary. I invite you to do that. Mr. Dudar, please. You are on mute.
I apologize. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Ramsey Dudar, founding member of Patients and Users for Reasonable Policy. The opening of this bill claims that many of these high-potency cannabis products did not exist and were not widely available prior to legalization. Respectfully, one's own ignorance of the black market doesn't make their assertions about it correct. High-potency concentrates were popular in the black and gray markets well before legalization was voted on or implemented. I can tell you firsthand that early pre-legalization extracts were not nearly as safe or as high quality as the regulated products we have today. The consensus statement referenced in the beginning of this bill repeatedly mentions risks for adolescents aged 14 to 18. We already restrict the sale of cannabis products to adults aged 21 and older, and all consumers typically have to show their ID twice before they receive any product. This bill would effectively ban concentrates, which is antithetical to the very premise of I-502, that prohibition doesn't work. When these products stop being available at retail cannabis stores, it will spark a resurgence of black market extraction labs, and I can guarantee you that dealers will not card adolescents to make sure they're 21. It's absurd how much time the legislature puts into over-regulating non-lethal cannabis products while
Did you guys see that burn? Oh, fuck.
Simultaneously voting to allow people under the age of 21 to help manufacture alcohol. This bill is overly reactionary, nonsensical, and frankly irresponsible, as it would append Washington's cannabis industry and reinvigorate illegal extractors. Do not pass this bill. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Do we have Vicki Christopherson? Vicki, when you're ready.
Sure. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Vicki Christopherson here today on behalf of the Washington Cannabis Association. Unfortunately, urging a no vote on House Bill 1463.
Nice.
My colleagues have done a really good job of making our points. I'll try to be brief. It has been less than a decade since Washington voters led the nation in approving a new approach for cannabis.
Thank you for your service, Reggie.
To the failed war on drugs. Our members unequivocally agree that no minor should have access to or ingest products created in the regulated marketplace. And in fact, as was stated, our retail locations have the highest percentage of compliance with not selling to minors. I think it's really important that we focus on one particular point, and that is the illicit market for cannabis concentrates was alive and well. It's inaccurate to state that the illicit market was only flower prior to the passage of 502. We can remember stories of garages exploding from these activities in the illicit market. And these products are really what is unsafe.
Lady, you had me until you start saying illicit market. It's the medical market, the medical market.
For youth in particular and for anybody. Creating a situation where we push the production of concentrates into the illicit market actually creates a far more unsafe system for our industry. It was over a year ago when people got sick from vitamin E, and it may not be remembered, but that vitamin E acetate was actually added to products in the illicit market. This, we believe, is sort of proof that we really need to keep
that was the real illicit market
safe and continue to ensure that it keeps products out of the hands of kids. Thank you for your time and appreciate your opposition to
bad word. Thank you for your service. God damn.
Thank you.
So rapid, appreciate that.
Nice.
We'll hear from Caitlin Ryan, followed by Don Danielson and Crystal Oliver.
See, again, kids don't have access to this.
Caveat, we are going to be really pressing the bounds of time. We may or may not get to, but we're just going to keep going as long as we can. And when we get cut off, the meeting ends. So go ahead, please, Ms. Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. My name is Dr. Caitlin Ryan, and I'm the Interim Executive Director and Board President for the Cannabis Alliance. I'm also the mother of 4 children, ages 17, 13, 11, and 8. I, on behalf of the Cannabis Alliance, would like to propose an alternative, safer, and more effective approach to the concern this bill is trying to address. Unfortunately, industry has been restricted from broad collaboration with the prevention community, even being barred from community meetings by LCD officials. It's important to point out a few critical misconceptions before I propose a solution, however. THC is not analogous to alcohol. Cannabinoid science is complex and not well understood due to limitations on research. Identifying one cannabinoid, in this case THC, exclusive of the whole plant, which includes CBD, CBN, CBG, terpene profiles, and more, belies a fundamental misunderstanding about cannabis and its effects. The 2020 joint study on concentrates did not consider the interaction of any of the other affecting components of the plant, and in that omission makes a flawed foundational assumption. We are firm believers in science and data-driven policymaking, and while it is a common refrain, we really do need more well-constructed research to inform this conversation. This bill also assumes that higher potency products lead to higher THC intake, but this is simply not the case. Ultimately, effects are driven by dosage, not potency. Cannabis consumers, many of whom are patients, titrate their dosing down depending on the product and also the delivery mechanism. Most drinkers don't drink a beer's worth of scotch or a coffee cup's worth of espresso, and yet the same is true for cannabis. Additionally, this legislation would rapidly emaciate options for patients who are already struggling to find medicine. Finally, when an allowed activity becomes illicit, that activity does not stop. It simply becomes illicit.
Preach.
In the end, dramatically restricting THC potency does not really solve the problem presented. However, a robust education program and stiff financial penalties for adults selling to minors would have an impact. In all other areas of activities restricted to adults, such as tobacco and alcohol, youth and community education is historically the most successful approach to prevention. While we oppose this bill, we are not opposed to addressing the concerns at the heart of this bill. We do not want you to
Lay the
have
gauntlet
access to
down.
regulated cannabis
Come to the
products,
table there,
except
crazy
who are
people.
medically directed, and we take our role as prevention community allies very seriously. We welcome any new partnership or opportunities for collaboration that come from this discussion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, we have a hard stop at 11:50. The whole meeting shuts down. So let's, if we can, I apologize. Let's do 1
Will
minute
do,
with
Tom,
Mr.
Nicholas.
Danielson and
I'll,
then 1 minute with Crystal
Ask
Oliver.
Tom.
And
We need to
again,
focus on. Is there any?
implore you
We're going to find out
all,
about legislation for you
submit
guys
written
about home
testimony.
grow.
Thank you so much.
That'd be
Go
interesting
ahead,
to find out.
Mr. Danielson.
I'm happy because this shit's wrapping up. You guys are here joining me. I got
morning,
weed waiting for me
Madam
after
Chair
this.
and committee members.
Thanks,
My
dude.
name is Don Danielson. I'm in here with my wife, Erica Danielson, to represent our son,
Oh shit.
Brandon Danielson, who was taken from us less than a year and a half ago due directly to the potency of marijuana, as he used highly concentrated oils in shatter. For years, Brandon struggled with mysterious bouts of repeated vomiting, nausea, stomach pain, and dehydration. These bouts would last anywhere from a day to more than a week.
I don't want to be a dick.
After,
After
several doctor visits and multiple trips to the ER, he was finally diagnosed with cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, or CHS. But it was diagnosed in a way that even doctors wasn't even confident with the diagnosis. On September 3rd, 2019, Brandon, our 27-year-old son, seemed to be on the backside of a longer than usual bout when he suffered a seizure as he slept. The medical examiner determined the seizure was directly related to CHS, even though he had stopped using long enough that his test results for THC were completely negative. Brandon was excited to be going on his first vacation to Hawaii with his wife in high school.
I feel bad for these guys as parents, but I guarantee you cannabis is not what killed their son.
Sweetheart. They were starting to look for homes to buy, and most exciting to Erica and I, he was starting to tease us about becoming grandparents. Now all that is gone because of marijuana. As we grieved, we looked for help, somebody that could maybe relate to what we were experiencing.
So how'd he die?
What we found was an eye-opener that I want everybody here to listen
The
to very
seizure?
clearly.
They commit suicide?
There are thousands, if not tens of thousands of people in social media groups right now talking about how they are suffering the exact same symptoms as Brandon.
Well, how'd he die though?
Some posting messages directly from the emergency room.
He's probably getting some Melissa shit too.
We're not telling you the story for your pity. We're telling it so other families don't have to suffer as we have.
I mean, I hate to say it, but you haven't really made a point.
The unending increase in concentration levels needs to stop. Limits need to be set and warnings
I
need
feel
to be
bad for
put
you
in
guys,
place.
but you're reaching, bro.
This is for our adult son. He was 27 when he passed away. This isn't about kids.
How,
This is about
motherfucker?
concentrated use and the unregulated increase of that concentration. This is why we are supporting Bill 1463. Thank you for your time.
You didn't say how. Pretty sure other things evolve.
Thank you.
Man.
Crystal, we have about 1 minute before this potentially shuts down.
And if I could take a moment of privilege, please accept our deepest sympathies for the terrible pain you are going through. And it helps us to hear and see a face on this problem. So thank you so much.
It's not a problem. Oh, that was it. We were forced to end that. All right. Let's take a breath together. That was some bullshit. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and just going over that. And the more we know, the more we can argue against and just know what's out there and what who's out here with us. God. Breathe. Okay. Now, after this, I will be taking my new Flume and breathing better in about 10 minutes. See you guys Sunday. Thanks for joining us. Like, subscribe. I forgot to introduce myself, but it's me, Miguel, aka Miggy420. Happy weekend.